Hello there, kia ora. What would you do if you found out the government was about to change one of the pillars of our justice system, the belief that everyone is innocent until proven guilty? Because that's exactly what's going to happen under new laws that they're proposing to get tough on gangs. Now, this is one of those topics that's really more complicated than people give credit for, but they're quite happy to reduce down to a couple of sound bites, including from people like our Prime Minister. And all you need to do is look at the comments section on any kind of mainstream social media page to find out that, well, a lot of people seem to assume that if you are against the patch law, you're in favor of gangs, but that's just not the case. You see, there are a lot of complicating factors here, like the fact that allowing somebody to wear a gang patch in public may be intimidating, but it's a form of freedom of expression and freedom of speech that should be covered under the Bill of Rights. It has to be incredibly targeted and really specific. There's also the fact that this is a bit of a double edged sword. If you're going to say, no, you can't allow gang patches in public, but we're going to be fine with allowing things like swastikas, what sort of messaging are you sending? At the same time, saying people have the freedom to wear gang patches also means they should have the freedom to use things like swastikas in public. See what I mean about a complicated issue? On top of that, there's even more concern around what these laws are actually going to achieve. In Western Australia, where the laws are based on that we're looking at getting, well, there seems to have been a reduction in the visibility of gangs. Their buildings have come down, their insignia is nowhere to be seen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that crime rates have gone down. In 1996, we actually rushed through a whole raft of anti gang laws based around the same kind of rhetoric that we've heard over the last 12 months from parties across the political spectrum. But research done in 2022 showed that those laws, well, they weren't particularly effective in stopping gangs from doing what they were doing, but they were particularly effective for people outside of gangs getting harsher punishments and more criminal offences racked up to them. And in Australia, where they've got harsher laws on gangs, they find that there tends to be a much bigger drop in the number of convictions going towards gangs and gang members than there were before these harsh laws came into place, which shows that the research doesn't necessarily agree with what's going on in our parliament. At the same time, local experts in gang culture point out that you might get an imported gang like the Comancheros or the Mongols who have a really different type of sort of structure to what we see for gangs like the mongrel mob, which have been around here so long that they've now got familial links, meaning that people are raised in families that have links back to the gangs, which creates this cycle. And so laws outlawing things like gang patches become much harder to deal with because you've still got these family links that don't necessarily adhere to those same sort of rules. There's also a whole bunch of questions about how this sort of thing is going to be policed. In Western Australia, again, where this law is from, there have been issues of gang members being arrested at private pool parties for going shirtless and having their tattoos out, or a librarian who won a heroic medal award from the mayor of her town in Brisbane being arrested for having a beer in a bar with a gang member. That kind of thing is really concerning because it all works on the premise that, well, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And that's the crux of what's wrong with this law. It's a law that's designed to make sure somebody is guilty before they get to have the rite of passage of going through the courts, where their guilt is already predetermined. And that's not how a law is supposed to work. That's not how a justice system is supposed to work. So while there are certainly a lot of complicating factors in this, rushing through any kind of laws to try and deal with the rhetoric of gang violence that gets pushed incredibly by right-wing parties in particular at the moment, that kind of thing is really problematic and a real concern when it comes to what happens with our justice system going forward.